So, welcome everyone to the 2021 American School of Asuncion Art Show and STEAM Expo. This is our sixth of 6 presentations over the last couple of weeks. So we have been meeting with community leaders and hearing from student presenters this week and last week. And this is our final presentation. And our goal is to have fun, and that's why we're here. And so we're here to talk about really cool things related to science and technology and engineering and art and mathematics. And so that's what we've been doing, and that's what we're going to do tonight. And we're joined by an amazing guest tonight that I'm going to introduce in just a moment, as well as some other teachers from ASA and some students. So it's going to be a fun evening. Glad that you're with us here. As a quick recap, we have been doing this for the last 2 weeks of school. It's a great way to celebrate all the achievements that our students have been doing this year, as well as planning for the next year and setting a bar high for the future, and also connecting with our community. We have so many strong community leaders that we want to highlight and connect with our kids so that they can be inspired to reach for higher stars in the future. So last week we kicked it off with Mr. Jeff Lipperer, and he helped us explore technical design in specifically from an engineering and design perspective on high complexity buildings. Then on Tuesday evening, we met with an ASA graduate, Francesco Gallerini, who is an international architect who worked on the Giorgio Armani Hotel in Dubai, in the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. Wednesday evening, we met with Claudia Rodriguez. She is the director of the Ben Franklin Science Corner, a STEM education center here in Asuncion. It's sponsored by the US Embassy and Paraguayan Scientific Society. And then we finished the week last week with Dr. Fernando Elias, a US Embassy affiliated medical doctor, who talked to us about what it's like to be a doctor and what it's like to be a medical practitioner, especially during the challenging times of COVID-19. This week we're back. We took Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off, and now we're back. Monday, yesterday, we were with a community development and improvement organization called Sistema B and ASU Mas B, which is all about focusing on how to improve communities through innovations. And they specifically talked about the neighborhood Santísima Trinidad and the efforts that they're doing to improve that neighborhood through community engagement and involvement. And here we are tonight with our final presentation. We're joined with the incredible Dr. Jorge Kurita, who is the engineering director as well as a professor at the at UNA, at the National University, the engineering director of the Paraguayan Space Agency. And undoubtedly, you've heard of the story of the Guarani SAT-1. And if you have not, this evening is a perfect chance to hear about it. And so without further ado, I would like to thank our presenter this evening, Dr. Kurita, and give him the floor. So Dr. Kurita, the floor is yours. Thank you and welcome for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schillen. It's really a great honor for me to present a little story about our first ever satellite. And by the way, we were one of the last country in South America to have a satellite. So we finally joined the elite club of countries where they were, having experience in operating and designing and building a satellite. In this case, we have our Guarani SAT-1. Okay, so if you allow me, I will share.
I think you can just go ahead and take over screen sharing at any time.
Yes, I will. Just a second. Yes, well, what a lovely evening, a little bit windy and perfect for a nice asado after this. I will really join one. All right. Oh, no, not yet. Oh, yeah, okay. Share. How can I share my presentation? Should I? Oh, wait. This is the other screen. Okay, yes, okay. And let me know if you start seeing my presentation.
Yep, it's coming on. Okay. Perfect. Yep, we see it. There we go. 1966.
Perfect. And if you see the next slide.
Space, the final frontier.
All right. We have to start. We have to start talking about the 1966. This is where we have this very iconic and famous TV series. And I wonder if some of you remember this logo. I was not even born back then, but this is the famous logo of the Star Trek, a series of, a TV series. And the movie, I'm sorry, not the movie, this TV series start with the famous quote, famous saying, space, the final frontier, where no man has gone before, and etc., etc. Well, until 1968, okay? But now, as Paraguayan, maybe we should say where no Paraguayan has gone before. Until when? I mean, we may have, a chance to be in space pretty soon. I'm very optimistic about this. And I have to show these two iconic pictures here. On your left-hand side, you see the Soyuz rocket from Russia. And on your right-hand side, you see the rocket from the Apollo program, where the two big giant countries, powers, space powers, let's call it that way, joined the race to space in 1969. I was not even born back then either. So, but people might remember, all our grandparents, how exciting it was, how these two powers were looking to each other and say who will be first in space. In 1957, the Russians put the first object into orbit, a human-made object, which is the Sputnik. You can see the little pictures. And the next big achievement is the first man on space. It's 1961, Yuri Gagarin, the cosmonaut. And of course, the most famous picture here, you see the bigger one, is the first man on the moon, Neil Armstrong, 1969. Big milestone from humans in space exploration. This picture here is our International Space Station, which is a symbol of international cooperation. This is the proof that how powerful is are humans when they all get together. 1998, we see here now Russians, Americans, Canadians, Europeans, the Japanese collaborating each other to explore, to be into space and do more into space exploration. This picture here is the famous picture of a Voyager space probe that sent to deep space to see and take pictures from far beyond the solar system. Right now, this picture, of course, is an illustration picture. I mean, nobody was there to take a selfie. But basically, this spaceship, this spacecraft was built to take to take the first pictures in the vicinity of, for example, in this case, Saturn, planet Saturn. These are now very deep into space. It's about to be shut down, and to say, thank you very much and goodbye. But it accomplished a lot of missions here. Now, these are the actors. These are the big protagonists. You see the Russian Space Agency, the Americans, the Japanese, and also the European. This is what we call old space. Few people accessing to space technology, a lot of money needed to deploy, execute these programs, and time. Usually satellites usually takes about years to build, and it's very difficult. It's not easy to do it. Let's talk about new space. And I'm going to introduce about this new concept here. And new concept, the new people involved in this one, new actors are, you can see here, are these here. These are just some representatives of the big scenario. We see Virgin Orbit, and a private company, Blue Origin from the rich guy here, Jeff Bezos, SpaceX from Elon Musk, and Space Adventures. This is a very interesting company. They are offering tickets to the moon right now, a ride to the moon, stay in the International Space Station. Of course, it's not yet deliverable, but they are already planning for any tourist, any rich guy to be there. And Satellogic, the bottom right-hand side, you see a small logo. This is actually an Argentinian company, a private company, and this is to prove the concept of new space. The new space is about everything to be initiated and carry on and finish. I mean, offering services 100% from the private sector, and not anymore government, not academia. They are building a lot of Earth observation satellites in Uruguay, actually in Uruguay, because this tax exemption policy like here, but this is an Argentinian company. So, new space. What are the characteristics of new space? Innovation and cost reduction. This is 2018. Very famous pictures from SpaceX, the 2 boosters returning to Earth to be reused in another launch, and never ever done before by other companies or agencies. These are one of the characteristics of new space. So therefore, because they can be reused, now the cost of launching a satellite was significantly diminished. Just to have an idea, usually NASA, to put a satellite into space, the price tag was about 200 millions per launch. It is reasonable, because if you think about it, that big rocket is going to be discarded, okay? Not going to be used anymore after the first launch. But now, because of the reusability, the cost reduced to $20 million only. So 10 times cheaper now. This picture, another characteristics of the new space is the private sector dominance. This is the company I mentioned before, the Argentinian one. They are building satellites as a private company, not as a public or government. It's interesting, right? And this is a really fast building facility in Uruguay. Another characteristics of the new space is the fast deployment and renovation. What we mean by this is satellite can be built within months, not year anymore, month. And yeah, it makes sense. Look at the size of this one. This is a nano satellite, cubesat style, and as a 1U satellite. So it's a fast deployment and also renovation. Renovation because they usually orbit in low Earth orbit. This is about 400 kilometers. It's a very nearby the surface of the Earth. And therefore, it just lasts maybe a month or a few years before burning back to the atmosphere. So that's why we call it renovation. And accessibility and technology transfer. This is a picture from a high school in Irvine, California. You see here, kids like you guys here, I mean, young people building a real satellite. This is a 1U satellite. They are building a real satellite to be launched into space. And that's why new space, get these benefits of, accessibility. Remember before, in old space, only, renowned or maybe highly trained engineers can access to building satellites. Now it's not the story anymore. Yeah, anyone can build. You don't need to be an engineer. You just need to like to do it, right? So this is technology. Oh, this is the picture of our Paraguayan engineer in Japan. He's building, or he built already actually, our Guarani SAT, our first satellite. And you can see here, all these electronics are really stuff that you can get in the shop. Is not that complicated, of course, and that's another characteristics, the technology transfer. So now, in conclusion, we have to be in space to be able to solve terrestrial problems. Why I'm saying this is because you see a picture here of the soybean in Paraguay. We are a very unique economy here. We export soybeans. We're the fifth exporter in the world. Our economy is based in farming, and this doesn't mean that we shouldn't be involved into space. Actually, space technology can help improve farming. I mean, improve the business of having an intelligent crop, intelligent agriculture. That's what we call in terms of space technologies. So sometimes the thing that is holding you back is holding your hand. These nice pictures of a little horse being tied in a chair. In reality, it's just his mindset that is holding this horse to be free. I compare this to our case in Paraguay. We think that the space is for big countries like Argentina or even Brazil, but it's really something about psychological issue. I mean, we can access to space now, especially because we are into new space. So the sky is not the limit anymore. That's the bottom line. Okay? And let's introduce you quickly to the first Paraguayan satellite in the new space, how this began. And it started, this is the program they called BIRDS 4, and it started with the program from the United Nations, the Kibo Cube. This is the name, official name, that is about countries like Paraguay doesn't have any satellite experience, satellite in orbit. We do now, but back then we didn't. And Japan was supporting the launching of these satellites for free. So it's a free ride to space. So because of this, and you remember the major cost of a satellite is one of the major costs is the launching and putting this in orbit. Now we have this free, and we joined this program quickly. And we have a letter of intentions signed in Vienna, Austria in 2018 to expedite this process. So this is a picture of our actual Guarani SAT-1. If you can see, is a very tiny satellite, and you see the center here is a flywheel. We use that to control the attitude or the orientation of our satellite. And we put this satellite into several testing to make sure this won't fail into space when it's launched through a rocket. In this case, we have a rocket launched from Virginia, Antares. Sorry, this year. Yeah, this year. Was it this year? Yeah, this year. Sorry.
It was this year. Yeah, this year, I think in February, right?
Yeah. Anyway, it was a while ago. So this shakes, we call it also shaker, and make sure no bolts and nuts or even welding points are being loose after shaking it. And this is a picture. This is a quick picture when we assemble the parts in Japan, and we have a ceremony there. It's like a commencement, okay, for the satellites. We all get together and talk about the design, and we have a review of the design. They call it critical design review. And that was 2 years ago, before the COVID-19. And this is the picture of the presentation. And we have 10 missions here, okay? And as you can see, some description of the components, and all of them are basic components. We can get it in the shop here. This is one of the concepts of the new space, not anymore complex and too expensive parts, And well, a little bit explored view of the components. I won't go into the details, but basically it's a fully packed satellite. And we used to monitor, to check on the vinchuca, which is a disease in the Chaco region. So basically we have sensors in the whole Chaco region to detect this insect. And this in turn is going to be sending information to a hub, and this is sending to a satellite. So when satellite pass over Chaco, get the information, and when it passes over Asunción, most precisely San Lorenzo, it downloads the information, and so we can have a detailed information on how the vinchuca is being spread in Chaco region. This is a proof of concept, basically. It's not really the end purpose of the satellite, but we can use for other purpose too. So this is a nice picture of the satellite here, and the next step. The next leap is to build the next satellite here in Paraguay. Yes, our Guarani SAT-1 was built in Japan by Paraguayans, but we can do it here. And that's, I think, is very well possible with the help of you guys. You, the audience here, are going to be the one that is going to build the next satellite. So how, when, where, who? Well, we expect scholarships to help on this project, like from the government, local government, international collaborations. We don't also need to work only with Japan. We can work with the USA, Europeans, even with Argentinians and Brazilians. Academic exchange, integration and testing laboratory. We are building this now. So in the case that you have your idea, your mission, and your components to your satellite to be placed into orbit, let us test them first, okay? So we can make sure it won't fail when it's in space. Highly trained local faculties, international faculties, satellite component cost reduction, and most importantly, I believe the launching services will be very cheap in the near future. So that will help us to say, okay, I want to launch my cell phone into space. You know, it cost me only $40,000. I have this in my bank account. I can try it. I will hire SpaceX for launching it. And it may be possible because for 40,000 or less than that, or 20,000, you can have your stuff placed into space. Of course, it will be burned after a little while because it's going to be in low Earth orbit. That's good for avoiding garbage, space debris and stuff like that. Okay, we have some example of our institution in the US that we can talk with and work together to launch our next satellite or project. And why not? We may send stuff into deep space too, into Mars. And yeah, some example of in our space agency's program here we are working on right now. We can talk about that later. And come on, let's be on board. Let's make history. We can do it together, and let's stay tuned. We can count on. You guys count on me. This is my email address here, and of course my telephone number. You can contact me anytime to talk and discuss about our next step. Thank you very much. Open to questions.
Dr. Kurita, I want to say thank you so much on behalf of all of our team here, joined by several teachers here at ASA and other students here at ASA. We really appreciate your time coming in, and all the attendees joining. If you do have questions, you can ask them using the Q&A function. We're going to hear from a couple student presentations shortly as well, but I want to give our teacher team and our students a quick chance to ask Dr. Kurita any questions from this presentation. I don't know, Jason or Nathan, if you guys have any questions, you want to just jump in, or same thing, Geronimo or Ilan.
So Dr. Kurita, what's the Agencia Espacial de Paraguay's feelings on the Webb telescope in October? Or will we have any feelings with the Webb telescope?
Oh, that's really a good question. Just sorry, I just asked for a delivery.
Looks like he is temporarily busy. So maybe what we'll do is we'll transition to Q&A in just a moment here. Looks like he's got something to attend to. We have student presentations that are going to share with us what we're doing here at ASA to try to emulate this and to try to connect our students to space technology as well. So let's just jump into those for the sake of time. Ilan, do you mind going ahead, and then we'll switch back to asking Dr. Kurita some questions.
Sorry, I was lost in the some urgent call. That's a good question. I think we can talk about that. Right now, space agency is a bit into the budgetary issues. As you all know, not only in Paraguay, we have budget cuts everywhere. Looking into the private sector, though, I mean, as I mentioned before, it's not my saying. It's actually a statement from big experts in Japan and also in the United States. It's just you look at the fact who is leading the space race now. They are the private companies, right? It's not NASA, not and we believe too. We believe in Paraguay that we should evolve more into the private sector, and we work on that too later. Yeah.
And real quick, when will the next Space Week be? Because the previous Space Week on YouTube was simply amazing, and looking forward to the next one. Is there plans for the next Space Week?
I will let you know. Yes, it's a Space Week in October, and I'm in charge of organizing the event, so definitely you will know. I was appointed to be the chair of the organizing committee, and yes, I'm glad to hear that you are aware of this and looking to be part of the week activities. It's exciting. I mean, it's not only Paraguay, everywhere. We are connected to all the agencies in the world, local, internationally, and we should get involved. I'll let you know. Thank you for mentioning it.
Before we move on to student presentations, Ilan or Hero, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Dr. Kurita?
Yes. So I know that the mission for the Guarani SAT-1 was just detecting that that disease, right?
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any do you have any other missions for maybe other satellites?
Oh, definitely, yes. That actually, this is the fun part, right? When you buy a car, usually you get one of these two ways. You buy because you really like the design of that car, regardless of what is the purpose of. The other one is you buy a car because you really need to do something with it. Not only moving from point A, point B, but also to carry stuff in the trunk. So that's why you buy a pickup car, for example. So it's a mission, right? We call it a mission. A satellite is the same thing. When you build a satellite, you have to really, that would be the purpose of it. That's the first step. Then you build the satellite. And in this particular case, or many times, you build the satellite, then you ask a question, okay, what can we use this for, right? Well, if you were a rich country, that would be a nice alternative. But in our case, we have to really use smartly, very carefully, all our funds to design the satellite. But having said this, okay, since whoever is going to put the money for building satellites, say company X, Metallurgica Gonzalez, okay, I want to just put my logo into space. Okay, that's enough for a mission. I mean, putting a logo, your company logo, enough. Do you have the money? Yes. Okay, we'll put that in space. So it's very, very, not restricted. We have, this very open-minded thing. Don't worry about that. But yeah, we are looking into actually, this is, off the record, okay? It's a secret. We're looking into, Pinchuca is already over, but into this plague in the Chaco about this insect. I'm not sure about, I mean, it's with the World Bank. We are talking with biologists and to create the sensors. So that will be our next mission, most probably. Good question.
I think at this point it's good to let's move on to some student presentations, and then we will open up again for Q&A for the entire community. I can see we have a couple of questions in the Q&A. Ilan, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you go ahead and screen share and show us what you've been working on in terms of Arduino sensors. So our students, we have a class called Engineering and Robotics in the high school, and we were inspired by you, Dr. Kurita, to go deeper with Arduino. So we noticed that the satellites that you were building are Arduino based. And so we said, let's do it. Let's get our hands on it and let's play around with it. So Ilan and Jeronimo are going to share some of their models that they created.
Yeah. So during the engineering robotics class, we started utilizing Tinkercad to create Arduino Uno R3 projects. And for my first project, I decided to, I saw that in traffic, many people, once there's a green light, they wait for some reason, and it slows traffic down a lot because they have to wait, and then the car behind them has to wait, and the car behind them has to wait, and it's very detrimental to speed up times. So what I created was a sensor that detected if there was any object in the close to it, and if there was, as you can see, the motor is off, but if there isn't, the wheels start turning.
It looks like actually the number is there. Can you tell us a little bit about the number there, the wheel turning?
Yeah, this is the revolutions per minute. It's how much the wheel turns per. This is the maximum for the specific motor. Then I also tried to design a sensor that would detect if it's either cold or hot outside, and if it was colder, the blue light would turn on, and if it was hot, the red light would turn on.
Cool. Thank you very much,
Nice.
Ilan.
I like it. By the way, I'm not really not into Arduino. There are my students and other engineers, but I can tell you your idea of the temperature sensor is very important. It didn't happen much here in Paraguay, but I know in the US, people used to forget toddlers inside the car or pets. And when it's getting too hot, you know, they usually go, they may die, you know. And I know 4 more corporations, I mean, 4 companies try to implement this same concept you were saying, you know. But not only by the temperature, but also motion sensor. So they have a motion sensor inside where the light is on the top of the ceiling. And when they detect 2 things, when the engine is off and they detect movement inside the little compartment, the alarm sounds, right? For some reason, they are not implementing this yet. They might have some reason for why, but your idea is helpful. I think that can be proposed as a safety tool, safety, you know, feature. I'm thinking about business, okay, and selling this in the private sector.
Great. Let's move on to our second presentation. Hero, the stage is yours.
Okay, so this circuit is pretty basic, but it has one sensor. It has this motion sensor, which will receive the input, which is motion, and lead to 2 different outputs, which would be this motor and this the LED light. So, and here we have the Arduino, of course. So if we start simulation, so whenever this sensor detects any motion, you can see that that motor rotates 180 degrees and the light starts blinking. If there's no motion, then it goes right back to its original position. So I see this as like a prototype or a mini model of an automatic door. So whenever they sense motion, they open. And once there's no motion, then they return back to their original position. They close back. And yeah, so they open and then they close back. And also these doors often come with blinking lights. Whenever they're open, there's a light that starts blinking. So this is just like a mini model of an automatic door, a mini model of its circuits and its mechanics as well.
A quick question for you, Hero. What was the hardest part in this? Kind of the original design, or coding it, or finding, like, putting all of the pieces on the breadboard?
Well, yeah, I think putting the pieces in the breadboard, because like you have to connect everything here, and I looked for some, like, there were parts where I was stuck, so I had to look I had to like search for answers or look at other models to understand how to connect everything. So I think that was a hard part. The code was not too hard because this is pretty simple. There's nothing too complicated about this. So whenever there's like motion detected, here you can see that my servo is a motor. So 180, it turns 180, it rotates 180 degrees, and the blinking lights. I added this. This says delay because I wanted the lights to blink. So LED high means that the light is turning on, and then LED low means that the light is turning off. So it turns on, and then there's a delay, and then it turns off. So I also had to find a way to make it a blinking light rather than just a light that stays on.
And so following your code there, where it says else, meaning that if it's not receiving the input,
Right.
the microserver returns back to 0, which is 0 degrees.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for walking us through that, actually. This makes me think, like, how could this be a satellite? You know, if this is the components and you put this up into space, how would this work as a satellite? Like, if there's other materials in space, you know, the satellite would have to reorient itself. Great. Thank you so much for sharing. At this point, we're going to open up the general questions. I want to give the floor back to Dr. Kurita if you have any questions or comments for our presenters, and then also Mr. Golden and Mr. Lipper, and then we'll just slowly go through the Q&A until we're done. So
I've got a question for Elon, if he's ready for it. You talked about how if something or a car in front of another car would start to move and your sensor would detect that, so the car would start moving as a result. Is that right? Could you do it like reverse? Could you do it like reverse process where if there's all of a sudden a car there, it could sense that and slow down the vehicle as a result? Could you use that same program to make that happen?
Yes. So basically what my program detects is if there is an object in the range, it stops. It's not working when and it speeds up when there isn't.
We do have a couple of questions in the Q&A. One of the ones that came in a long time ago is, why is the satellite so little? I think this is for you, Dr. Kurita. Why is the satellite so little? I think the person asking it is surprised that so much technology can be put in such a small compartment.
Well, the main reason is because the cost. I think there is a price tag. If you increase of 1 kilogram or something, the cost increase significantly. And most of the time, these kind of satellites are put into another. They are going to space like a piggyback. They are not the main purpose of putting. They are back into other big satellites. So if you have room, can I go with you? It kind of stuff, And then they put in the back seat. So that's the reason why it's too tiny. And for those who are building and have ever built an Arduino, like these two teams here, you realize that it's not that simple, right? I mean, you have to program, you have to connect cables. And I'm pretty sure that most of the time, the first try doesn't work, right? The second, maybe not. The third is going to work. And I'm also amazed. I mean, I have to confess, too much stuff in tiny space. Before Guarani SAT-1, I was working in high altitude balloons, like global sondas, right? You put stuff, electronics and cameras, and put in the balloons, and believe me, I did like 5 launches with 5 group of students. In every single of them, something failed. I mean, one of them even failed totally. I mean, we launched a brick and came back, and we didn't have any picture, nothing. I mean, we were lucky to recover. But in short, what I'm trying to say here is, yes, it's too much stuff inside. My worry was, is it going to really work all this together? They were professors in the same university in Japan. They were questioning, and they were debating on why too much components. I mean, they were not that happy to see so much things packed in tiny space. And when you see in real life, you see that you touch with your hands, it's hard to believe, so many, electronics inside working seamlessly. In most of them open source, all of them open source, like Arduino. Yes, actually, the camera that it has is an ArduCam. Can you believe the ArduCam? I mean, those who can buy in Amazon, ArduCam is the camera for being placed into Arduino platform. These were ArduCams, and yeah, I was also amazed. Good question.
Looks like there's a couple other questions about a wooden CubeSat. There was a news story in the past few days about a wooden CubeSat that was launched to test the viability of using wood as a material in space. Do you have any opinions on this one, Dr. Kurita?
This is my first time hearing it, but I won't be surprised that people are trying to use organic or wood stuff, to test the concept into space. And by the way, I was 2 to 3 years ago, I was contacted by a graduate student in Sao Paulo, University of Sao Paulo. He's a Paraguayan too. He's researching on supercapacitors. And it's made of this leftover from when you when you deal with rice in the farming process. I mean, you have this leftover, like it looked like a I'll say it, cereal. Okay, so they use that to create supercapacitors. And I told him we can try that the concept if this work into in space. So those are organic stuff too. I'm pretty sure these kind of experiments will be ongoing. Like you try wood, or maybe we can try lapacho, our famous lapacho taju, or we can try many local organic stuff and be surprised. Oh yeah, we are. See, this is possible because of the long cost reduction. 10 years, 20 years ago, impossible. I mean, you won't spend a lot of money on trying things like that. But now, any ideas are welcome. I mean, if you have a good idea, we may be possible to try and place this into space. That's the beauty of new space.
I'm going to turn it back over to our panelists. Panelists, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Dr. Kurita at this point?
Yeah, I was just going to echo one of the questions in the chat here. What are some of the primary tasks for the Guarani SAT-1?
Okay, good question. Actually, the first one is a picture. Is taking a picture right after the deployment. For some reason, this never happened with other satellites. It's a good point. You want to know what happens during the launching, on the first seconds of when it's launched from the deployer, right? See, this is the there's a camera pointing and recording everything, the moment of the launching. The other one is to try. Yes, this is something I forgot to mention. There is a new solar cell. It's an organic one. Again, you see, they call it perovskite or something like that. It's a new material. So they are trying to see if this will work into space. I mean, using the space environment. The other one is the famous glue called RTV. I think everybody here dealt with RTV before. Well, I didn't know nobody used RTV for space applications. And okay, this is the first time they use RTV to try to see if RTV can stand space environments. So this is a RTV glue somewhere in the Guarani SAT-1. And okay, one more. And of course, the Vinchuca is one of the missions. They call store and forward. It means they store the information and then forward the information once the satellites see ground station. In this case, there's one in San Lorenzo, and so on and so forth. So 10 missions, interesting missions.
So then if you don't mind, I have a few, just a couple follow-up questions. One, is the pictures or videos that the Guarani SAT-1 took available so that we can see them, or is that something we can't see? And then would Guarani SAT-2 be something like a solar sail that they launched a long time ago, several years ago? I think a solar sail was launched. Is that a goal for Paraguay to launch something similar?
Yes, actually, this is a good question, and you are not the only one. I mean, many are asking me, where is the picture coming? I want to see the pictures and stuff like that. Well, it's being calibrated. I mean, the satellite is turned in a sleep mode right now. They are being calibrated from Japan. So the engineers, I mean, the students and faculties are sending commands. They are checking into the battery status and how the camera are working before putting into full operational mode. So I will let you know. I think this is this month, June, is going to be finished, and we'll be getting you the pictures. It's going to be exciting, right? I mean, and they also, one of the mission is to prove the concept of the algorithm. Usually when you take picture, a satellite is spinning, right? And when they take pictures, sometimes they take picture into blackness of the space. Oh, suddenly you take picture right above Paraguay. Well, they have an algorithm to discard all the other useless pictures and only save those are related to the Earth observation positions. And especially we look into Paraguay, sky. Hopefully, we will get soon.
Turning back to the Q&A, there's a couple questions about how long will the Guarani SAT-1 last in orbit, and then also do CubeSats become space junk after their life has passed? So what typically happens to a CubeSat once they retire?
That is a really good question, and I'll very happily answer that. The lifetime of a CubeSat is actually, or any satellite, is depending on the orbit. This is a low Earth orbit, means that it's sooner or later, sooner than later, is going to be is decaying. I mean, that means getting closer to the Earth and is going to be burned into the atmosphere. So the lifetime is between 6 months to 2 years. And so that means that our Guarani SAT-1 will be burned out from the entry in 2 years at the longest. So there's no debris. That's the good news about it. Debris is going to be minimal. And that's the tendency. All these other, small satellites are being placed in the low Earth orbit for that purpose. And there's one I think I mentioned before. There was one when they call it FlatSat. Oh, I forgot the name. There's tiny satellites being launched when Guarani SAT was launched back early this year from another school in Washington, D.C. They were launched during the process of reaching orbit. Means that those are going to be orbiting days only. It's going to be burned into the atmosphere. So the garbage won't be a big issue, but we're still, taking care of that.
Back to the panelists, Mr. Goldman, Ilan, or Hero, do you guys have any questions you'd like to ask?
Well, as a elementary teacher, metric or customary is what measurements are usually used in space exploration? I'm sure my students want to know.
Okay, that's a good question. To be honest, okay, we were just established in 2017, actually officially 2018 with a budget, minimal budget. We are still building our indicators. But the first step is the space policy, Política Espacial, which is available on the website. That is too, that too is not perfect. We base our measurements on the objectives, on the goals, long-term, mid-term goals. But we are all here, including myself, we are all here educators. To us as a space agency, at least from my point of view, top priority is capacity building. And that means educate people, send people outside to learn more about space, coming back here and help us to build the space agency. It didn't happen. We won't like to repeat this case of Bolivia. Bolivia bought a satellite for telecommunication. Then after that, they built a space agency. It's the reverse of it. We like to know more about space and then, move forward. But I can tell you ahead, we are focusing on education right now.
Well, I guess the good news is that we are a strong partner with you. And so we're looking forward to Space Week in October. I think that's a really good goal for us to look forward to and celebrate again, advances both on the ground and in space there. We want to thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kurita. It looks like you've gotten through most of the questions that the Q&A has had for you, as well as our panelists. So I think we're going to close out at this point. Unless there are any abstentions, I want to say thank you to all of our presenters, Dr. Kurita, Hero, and Ilan. Thank you so much for sharing the amazing things that you guys are doing, as well as our teachers for being here and supporting everyone along the way. If there's no other questions or comments, I think we're going to end the session for this evening. Say thank you to everyone else and have a fantastic evening. So all the best. We'll see everybody. This is our final session of the STEM Expo.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you so much, Dr.
Stay
Kurita.
safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kurita.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch for the Space Week, definitely.
We'll be in touch for Space Week. Fantastic. Okay,
Maybe we should launch a high altitude balloon to celebrate that.
Don't invite us too much. We'll hold you to it. We're gonna hold you to it. You can see both of our teachers are extremely excited. So,
see, Space Agency can put balloons and helium, and you guys can place the payload, which is Arduino based, camera and stuff like that, and we can trace it. with you guys. That will be fun. And look into the pictures, amazing pictures. I'm telling you, it's beautiful.
All right, Hero, there you go. It's time to build your Arduino robot. We're launching it in a balloon this October.
Great.
All right, all the best. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.
Thank you.